Welcome to One Media Forum, the premier episode of our discussion on global and Philippine affairs. And for today, our topic is Philippines' future in relation with China. What does the future hold for these two nations in Asia in relation to all the challenges that it faces? And our president has just returned from a visit to China, his fifth and eighth meeting with President Xi Jinping, bringing home 6 agreements, among other things, also the formation of a steering committee for the joint Philippine-China gas and oil exploration and development. With us is a panel of experts in 3 different fields, in diplomacy, in national security and military affairs, and in business and finance. So I will ask each of our guests first to give a 1-minute projection and global view of these two relations, these relations of the two nations, and what they can see in the next 10 years. And then we will go into discussions of specific issues in relation to these. First of all, we have Ambassador Alberto Encomienda, who has been a diplomat all his life for the Philippines, serving the Philippines. He has been assigned to various embassies of ours. Among them is Malaysia, and maybe we can ask him about the other assignments later on. But I would like to ask Ambassador Encomienda, after seeing all these and having engaged in the debates on the most crucial issues, and also a career in preparing some of the most vital foreign policy perspectives of the Department of Foreign Affairs, I'd like to ask Ambassador Encomienda what he can see in the next 10 years. In light of what many of the detractors of President Duterte's policy of independent foreign policy and the so-called pivot to China, if there is really such a pivot to China, what former Secretary of Foreign Affairs, for example, Ambassador Albert de Rosario said, is a betrayal of Philippine interests in the South China Sea. What is your reaction to this, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, I would like to say that if we are looking at relations with China, I would probably go even beyond 10 years and look at how we conduct our own bilateral relations and in relation to our wider interaction in the region itself, ASEAN and Asian. First, I would like to say is the narrative about can we trust China. I would like to say that in international relations, there is a saying, I understand it originated from Russia, but this was articulated by President Ronald Reagan of the United States, that you don't trust any other state. You trust but verify. So there is no such thing as a perception of trust. It doesn't play into international relations. Trust would be a good starting point, of course, for international relations, but you always verify. Number 2, in international relations, for big powers, major powers, and especially superpowers, you look at the whole world. I mean, that is where you want your influence to be felt. But for lesser states, you first look at your region, especially your immediate neighbors. So crafting your foreign policy, first it is between immediate neighbors and the wider region. And for the Philippines, especially with the narrative about who could help us in our national security, would it be the United States too far away, or should we try to deal with China in whatever way? I think it's obvious. You just have to deal with China being a next-door neighbor and being a regional neighbor. Finally, I would like to say that it has to be dealing with each other. It has to be through negotiations, and diplomacy. Now, this is how we have experienced dealing with China the last almost 10 years, the last decade. China has always been calling for negotiations and diplomacy, but I'm not saying this simply because I feel we should, follow China's ways, but this is the ASEAN way, starting from Gandhi and Nehru and of India about Asia for Asians, and even in the ASEAN context, the Musjawara Mufakat of Indonesia, it always calls for, among Asians, first consensus and negotiations. I stop there.
Okay, so what Ambassador Encomienda has said is that we must look beyond 10 years, maybe 25 years,
Forever.
one generation or two generations. I think that is one of the weakness of Philippine foreign policy. It is so short-term. Philippine politics is from election to election. Can we have such a strategic perspective? Number two, the question of trust. Whom do we trust? Of course, what you're saying is we trust only ourselves. But with regards to the other relations we have, we must verify. We must not only just distrust immediately, which seems to happen with China for some people. Number three, you stressed the point that we must work with our neighbors. We must negotiate with everybody. Okay, so with those points now that we've heard from Ambassador Encomienda, we go to the national security issue, the military question. Whom do we trust? We have trusted the United States of America for at least 50 years, even though we fought a Phil-American war before. But we still have a mutual defense treaty. President Duterte is proposing that we have a new friendly relations, which is China. What do you say to this?
Palagay ko dapat maging neutral. We take the position of neutrality. Dito sa posibleng banggaan ng dalawang superpower. Meron tinatawag na Thucydides trap. And for the next siguro decade or so, the danger of the two superpowers falling into that trap is very great. Especially now that nag-umpisa na yung trade war between the US and China. And the ruling superpower right now, the United States, is very fearful of China's rise. And the US wants to contain China, starting with this trade war. And this trade war can easily turn into a hot war. So, ano dapat ang posisyon ng Pilipinas diyan? Para sa akin, kailangan we should adopt a position of neutrality. Dahil pag nagbanggaan yung dalawang elepante, sabi nga, ang mga ants,
Yung mga langgam.
yung mga
langgam, matatapakan.
So, I think that yung national interest natin should be to adopt a position of neutrality.
Okay, I forgot to first introduce, although he needs not much introduction, General Victor Corpus has had the most adventurous life, has had a movie made of his life, and has seen all aspects of our Philippine national security challenges, and we will go back to those particular issues. And now, with this question of the trade war that was raised in the discussion, I go to Mr. George C. Emeritus, Leader Emeritus or President Emeritus of the Anvil Business Association, Young Filipino-Chinese Business Associations, founder of the IDSI think tank, the Integrated Development Studies Institute, and very active businessman in public affairs. He is a participant, if not a major component of many of our trade discussions with other countries. Mr. George C., in this trade war, it seems that the United States of America is making the world choose between its preeminence in business and trade or China. Where should the Philippines? Saan dapat lumugar ang Pilipinas dito sa trade war? Sa hamon ng Estados Unidos, kung ayaw nyo sa amin at doon kayo sa China, mawawalan kayo ng malaki sa trade sa Amerika. Ang China naman, malaki din ang trade, in fact, top trading partner ng Pilipinas. Ang sabi ng mga detractors ng China, hindi mapapagkatiwalaan yan. Ang mga produkto niyan, may hina, may debt trap yan. You have any reaction to this?
Itong United States and China are both big, very big economies. No? Traditionally, we have survived on the US, but currently, last year, siguro US trade with Philippines is about $18 billion and with China is about $24 billion. And China's is growing much faster than the Philippines. The United Nations has said that the railways constructed by China are at least 30% less expensive than those of the other countries. No, it has $6-7 trillion in surplus. The U.S. has $22 trillion of debt. No, so ang capability ng U.S. to give us much more assistance is not there. No, financially, technically, but in other aspects they are, because technologically they are quite ahead, and it's still an important market. So I would say politically we'll be neutral, but if we say how do we predict future behavior, all of science, all the sciences, social sciences and hard technical sciences say the best predictor of future behavior is the past. And the past behavior of the US has been one of a more imposing superpower. They impose their will on everybody else. So they tell us what to do with our finances. They tell us what to do with our trade, where we can buy, where we cannot buy. Whereas China, basically, yes, they want to be the leader, but it's up to you if you're going to follow or not. So I would say if they're giving us more advanced technologies at a lower cost, the 5G and other technology, they are also the source of the supplies. They are also the biggest market. Our trade is inevitably going to be larger with China than with the U.S., but we should try to remain friends with both sides. I don't think the U.S. will say that because you're trading with China, we will stop, because unlike some other countries, the Philippines is in a very strategic position, and they will continue to need the U.S. to keep its balance of powers here in this area.
Okay, I'm going to back to each one of them, each one of our panelists for a very short reaction to the detractors. In terms of diplomacy, ang sinasabi ng ibang mga kalaban ni Presidente Duterte, binebenta na ang Pilipinas sa China. Is that so?
Sa totoo lang, hindi ko naiintindihan kung saan nanggagaling yung salita na yan. Ang pagkaintindi natin, yung salita na yan, nanggagaling doon sa, kunyari, transaction sa South China Sea, na hindi natin nilalabanan ng China, kaya ang ibig sabihin, pati na yung sa mga isda, so ibig sabihin, binebenta na natin yung bayan natin. Masasabi ko lang, napakasimple ng usapan na yon. Because sa aking dating, kung isa-isahin natin yung mga insidente na nabubuo yung narrative na yan, talo ang China gawa ng spin, no? Pero kung if we, for the sake of our own national interests, put it in a more objective plane, I don't think we can arrive at that situation. Binebenta ang China just because sa trade, ang sabi ni George C., we might be better off looking at China, at saka sa military aspect, ibig bang sabihin na binebenta na natin o talagang sinusunod lang natin yung ating national interest?
Okay, abangan po ninyo ang follow-through with our other guests after this break. Okay, itong mga tanong and quick reaction. Ang tungkol sa South China Sea, sabi ng marami na dinidihado tayo ng China dahil inaagawan tayo ng mga teritoryo at sobrang kawawa tayo dahil wala tayong panlaban, kaya kailangan natin ng Estados Unidos at ang suporta ng Estados Unidos. Ano ang reaksyon nyo, General Victor Corpus?
kung magpapanig tayo sa isang side, ang danger dyan for instance, the United States withdrew from the INF Treaty. Ito yung intermediate range ballistic missiles. So, ang balak nila maglagay ng mga missiles dito sa Pilipinas. Nung mga INF missiles.
Mga intermediate range missiles, no?
Ang malaking problema dyan, pag linagyan ng, pag pumayag tayo na lagyan ng mga missiles yung ating mga EDCA bases, maaaring unahan tayo ng China. Kasi, mayroong policy ang China na they will not be the first to attack or to fire the first shot. But sa military, meron tinatawag na strategic level, operational level, at saka tactical level. If strategically, you fire the first shot, for instance, naglagay ng missile ang US na aabot sa Beijing at Shanghai, for instance, sa mga EDCA bases, that can be considered a first shot. Katulad nung nangyari sa Cuban Missile Crisis, na yung USSR noon, naglagay ng mga missiles sa Cuba. It almost resulted into a nuclear conflagration. Maaring yung mangyari yan sa atin.
So, ang payo nyo iwasan itong...
So, ang aking position nga, we should adopt neutrality.
Ibig
Wala
ba sabihin
tayong
yan?
kakampihan kay US o China.
pero ibig sabihin yan, kung walang kakampihan, buwagin na ba yung Mutual Defense Treaty?
I think the Mutual Defense Treaty is a danger to the Philippine security. Because kung sasama tayo sa awayan, because there is a big chance na yung nabanggit ko kanina, yung Thucydides trap, for the next 10 years, there's a big possibility that yung dalawang rival powers ngayon might fall into that Thucydides trap. Ibig sabihin, magkakagera or magkakaroon ng military confrontation yung dalawa. Now, kung sasali tayo dyan sa confrontation na yan, sabi nga, parang dalawang elepante na nag-awayan na tayong maapak-apakan.
Okay.
Can I have
Yes, sure.
Yes,
Before I go to George, may reaction dito.
Thank you. Because of that matter of the Mutual Defense Treaty, some quarters have been calling for its review because it is ambiguous. Now, that's one part of it. But the point about the INF Treaty and the Mutual Defense Treaty, the Mutual Defense Treaty can come into place only if there is an armed attack on the Philippines. And in the narrative now, we're talking that that's almost sure to happen from China. So the question is it really, is it really part of the Thucydides trap between two superpowers that China will attack the Philippines? In some ways, if we become a site for INF missiles from the United States, yes, but that is not the armed attack that is envisioned in the Mutual Defense Treaty. I cannot imagine China just attacking the Philippines to invade, for example. It cannot. So that scenario is out, and what we should look at is precisely as General Corpus said, in relations to. And another thing about the INF Treaty, the Cuban Missile Crisis was the most famous, okay? But the thing is, after the Cuban Missile Crisis blew over, the part of the agreement with the Soviet Union and the United States was for the United States to withdraw its medium-range missiles based in Turkey. So what does that mean? On the matter of the strategy, kamuntik nang US and Russia, because the US reacted to placing missiles in Cuba, whereas it already has those missiles in Turkey. Okay. So it's a very fluid thing.
Bago ako pumunta sa business and finance, ang tanong ko naman, mukhang 9% ng populasyon natin hindi alam itong mga issues na to. Kaya maraming pro-American pa, hindi nila naman naiisip na maaring itong pagka pro-American ang siyang magdadala ng disgrasya sa bayan dahil nga dito sa mga laro ng Amerika na mga missiles and mga military affairs. Before I go to Mr. George C., can you respond to that? Yung ating publiko hindi naintindihan ito, kaya hindi nila nararamdaman yung peligro dito sa Mutual Defense Treaty, yung malapit sobra sa Amerika.
I can only agree to that, that there is really a lack of understanding or appreciation on the part of the general public as to precisely what a mutual defense treaty is and how the strategic place between the superpowers, na sa totoo lang talaga, putting it in a simpler way, nasa gitna tayo eh. And in the end, ano ba talaga ang strategy ng Amerika? It's always America first, as we said just now. But there is a model to that. What happened in Vietnam? The United States just, the United States, no, the United States was fighting not the whole of Vietnam, but only North Vietnam. Natalo din sila. Pangalawa, pagdating dito sa ating military bases agreement, when it was about to expire, the United States tried to negotiate for a 10-year withdrawal period, orderly withdrawal period. Pumutok ang pinatubo, and overnight they went away, and that's not the end of the story. For the next 10 years, they suspended the operations of the Mutual Defense Treaty. And bumalik lang because sila na naman ang may pangangailangan because of the terrorist activity, in the South.
Okay, babalikan natin yung mga issues na yan. Let's go to the business and financial aspect. Ang trade war patuloy na nangyayari sa pagitan ng Estados Unidos at China. Pero nararamdaman ba ng Pilipinas? Do we really need to care about the trade war? Do we really need to choose between US and China? Yung mga bumabatikos sa mga paglalapit ni Presidente Duterte sa China para sa mga investments, loans, tulad ng POGO, yung Philippine Online Gaming. Marami namang perwisyo daw sa Pilipinas dahil maraming problema sa daan-libong mga Chino daw na nagtatrabaho dito. May pakinabang ba talaga ang business and economic relations ng Pilipinas at sa China?
Itong business relations, paano magiging hindi nakinabang ang Pilipinas when we are importing most of our goods from China, which of course we have to try to produce more also. But itong mga goods na ito are a fraction of the cost in the US. So kapag bumili tayo ng Apple phone, $700 to $1,000. Pag bumili ka ng Chinese phone, $50 or $30. So naging kasama ang mga farmers at mga mabababang level ng society natin sa digital economy. So that's one aspect. Itong sinasabi lang, nasaan bang pakinabang natin sa China sa investments? They are not looking, maybe even without looking at the investments, first of all, the investments are delayed by our own processes and rights of way. But better than the investments is the market they bring. Itong POGO, talagang may mga problema we have to address. But these problems are true in almost all countries. When they started here with the US, maraming pinapatay na Pinoy. Pag nandito yung mga Koreano dati, yung mga Hapon dati, lahat ng nightclub sa Rojas sa kanila. Yung Middle East, maraming rape at patayan sa mga disco dahil kailangan natin ng langis nila. It all started out, but eventually, it matures. No? Itong POGO, we've calculated for them the expenditures they have here in rentals is about 40 billion pesos a year. Yung upa lang, and it's growing. And the number of workers, what they spend here is 70-80 billion a year. That's over 110 billion. Tapos yung tourist is over 1 that's over another 70, 80 billion a year also. We're talking over 200 billion a year ang pumapasok sa Pilipinas na ginagastos nila. Paano hindi ito magiging something that's
Pakinabang
used
sa
pa?
Pilipinas.
Yeah, so it is all very solid, but some people continue to keep choosing to close their eyes. For instance, they're saying na kinukuhang trabaho ng Pilipino. Actually, wala silang mapakita na ni isa dahil yung mga ginagawa nilang
Yung
trabaho,
ninanakawan ng Pilipino ng trabaho.
hindi naman nagagawa ng Pilipino yung trabaho nila. And even in construction, yes, they hire maybe 10-20% Chinese, but 70-80% are Filipino workers, and we need to learn that technology. So it's very one-sided, but anyone who is in the ground economy will tell you, if all the restaurants here in Makati, BGC, and this area will tell you their business has doubled to tripled because of these people coming in. And this is not only increasing the investments and trade with China. Pag nakita ng mga European, Singaporean, American na malaki ang market, dumadami ang nagda-diversify, that is why they're also coming in.
Okay. We'll go to some specific, you can include your response to that, to this question. I'll just show you some images from the current news. The first one, on the diplomatic aspect, our tech can put it on. Sabi ni Presidente Duterte doon sa bisita sa China, itong huling bisita, na binanggit na niya kay President Xi Jinping yung arbitration results, yung claim ng Pilipinas, yung Permanent Court of Arbitration. Sabi ni President Xi Jinping, hindi naman niya talaga kinikilala ng China yan. Santabi na lang yan, tuloy na lang yung mga joint projects. Kayon, sabi ni Presidente Duterte, hindi na niya uulitin ito. Sabi naman ni former ambassador, former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert de Rosario, not raising the arbitral ruling again means accepting China is above the rule of law. Yung ibang mga balita, sabi, betrayal ito. For the Philippines to have been asked to agree that it will not bring up the issue again, sabi ni De Rosario, is to effectively accept without equivocation that China is above the rule of law. Dagdag mo yan, doon, una-una yung response mo doon sa business and economics, at then sagutin mo to.
I'm sorry to wade in again.
Yeah.
On that
Of course, we want that.
Because it has an international
Yeah.
relations aspect. Ang nakikita ko dyan sa POGO issue na yan, it has been going on for a long time dito sa atin, yung mga nagrereklamo ng pagtaas ng rentals, ganon-ganon. But the thing is, ating ideya yan at ating investments.
At ating batas.
Yes.
Batas natin.
So, napasama lang because sa ating side, mayroong nagre-raise ng security issues because many of these hubs daw are located near military bases, and so it is a security issue. Kaya dyan pumasok ang ambassador ng China. Please, I'm not defending him. I'm just narrating how I see it. So ano masasabi ng China? Kung problema yung security sa inyo pala, isara nyo yan. Ganun lang ang dating. No? So, I don't know. But Mr. George C. has articulated what President Duterte said, na kailangan yun ang ekonomiya natin.
Let's move on to that statement of Del Rosario that this is a betrayal above rule of law ang China dahil dito sa sinabi na hindi na babanggitin ni Presidente Duterte itong arbitral ruling.
I'm sorry, but mahaba itong dating ko dyan sa situation na yan. Because number one, hindi naman talaga nasusunod ang dapat na diplomatic exchange and negotiations on the aspect of the Hague PCA. At the time, the past 3 years, saka at the time pag-alis ni President Duterte, ang dating lang ay dapat we should raise that with China, ganun. Okay, we should raise it with China, but how to do it on the diplomacy part of it?
We have 1 minute, kaya
Sure.
i-compress natin.
Okay, i-compress ko kaagad. Diretso muna ako sa point na yan. Hindi dapat magsimula yan sa heads of state. Doon yan nagsisimula sa mga working groups. Ano bang position natin? Ano ang position ng China para mapag-usapan natin? Hindi yung, kaya totoo yung sabi ng nasa guy, yung iba na sarsuela lang yung nangyari sa China, which is true. The President Duterte was playing to his domestic audience, Xi Jinping was playing to his domestic audience, but pagbalik natin, I'll talk about the
Sige, okay. So, there is a second part ni si Teddy Boy Locsin, and this is becoming controversial also, dahil daw doon sa sagot ng China, doon sa tanong ng Pilipinas, magbibigay ba kayo ng notisya pag pumapasok ang Chinese vessels sa Philippine territorial water? Sabi ng China, yes, we will give notice because that's what we expect other countries to do. Pero sabi ni Locsin, Secretary Locsin, mapapalapit tayo sa China dyan dahil magkakapareho ngayon ang ating patakaran. Samantalang sabi ni Secretary Locsin, I think we can flash it with the little time that we have for this segment. No? The problem was this, sabi ni Locsin, Western naval powers do not, as a matter of principle, ever ask for permission because they insist on total and absolute freedom of navigation. So, yung Amerikano at yung ibang mga kanlurang bansa ang ayaw magbigay ng notisya. We'll discuss that after this break. Okay, this is One Media Forum, premiere episode and third and final segment. Kaya po, open your eyes and ears. So, let's go back to Ambassador Encomienda. Ano ba yung ihahabol nyo?
Gusto ko lang sana ipahabol yung tungkol sa hindi daw dapat apologetic si President Duterte. Ito lang ang problema sa sitwasyon natin na hindi nagkakaintindihan. Maliwanag, totoo nag-apologize si President Duterte. I don't think we should deny that. It was all quoted by Secretary Panelo and whoever else. But the apology, ang lumalabas sa dyaryo, he is apologetic daw in regard to the arbitral ruling. No. It is clear from the setting and that President Duterte was being very polite in apologizing for raising it up despite it not being in the agenda. Na ganito ang laro niya mga high-level visits. Agenda has to be prepared well in advance. Now,
ilang buwan yan,
kung may isang bansa o the other does not want an agenda to be there, walang mayayari. So nakikita ko lang, yan ang nangyari with China. Ayaw ng China i-discuss yung The Hague PCA ruling, and prerogative nila yan. We cannot fight them on that. But President Duterte, for the sake of his domestic audience, insisted on raising it up.
That's right.
So he has to apologize on that point.
Okay, so now let's go to the statement of Secretary Locsin. Mukhang sobrang lumalapit na ang policy ng China at ng Pilipinas dito sa issue ng notification of vessels when they transverse the territorial sea. And there's nothing wrong with that, is there?
Well, maybe so, but ang sa akin is dapat maliwanag ang basis because ang China requires notification even in their exclusive economic zone. Now, China has no archipelagic waters. Tayo nga may archipelagic waters. Iba ang dating sa archipelagic waters, yung transit ng foreign vessels, iba yung sa exclusive economic zone. Now, totoo lang, strictly speaking, under the UNCLOS, kung innocent passage in the exclusive economic zone, you do not need to notify. But any passage through archipelagic waters, it should be polite to notify, although hindi kailangan.
Itong bagay na to, kailangan dagdagan natin ang mga pagpapaliwanag sa publiko tungkol sa yung archipelagic waters, halimbawa, may conflict yan sa UNCLOS, di ba? But we cannot discuss it in this.
Okay, no.
We have to devote a whole
conflict,
program for that.
Walang
diba?
conflict, but iibahin natin yung usapan.
Okay. So, now let's go to General Corpus because this is one of the vital information the public still does not know. And I will highlight this by showing you an image from CNN. Ano po ang headline dito sa CNN? Tingnan natin nga kung naihanda na. Sabi po dito sa headline na to ng CNN World, China could overwhelm US military in Asia in hours, ayon sa isang Australian report. Basahin natin from that report. The study by the United States Study Center at the University of Sydney in Australia warned that America's defense strategy in the Indo-Pacific, quote, is in the throes of an unprecedented crisis, unquote, and could struggle to defend its allies against China. Ibig sabihin, mahihirapan depensahan ng Estados Unidos ang mga kaalyado niya sa rehiyon, meaning Japan, South Korea, and sino pa yung isang ally? The Philippines. Maraming pangako sila. Ang Estados Unidos, depensa ng Pilipinas, kaya ba? That is why we want General Victor Corpus to explain to us why not only this report, but Rand Corporation and many other American, British, and other think tanks have said this again and again. Bakit? Totoo ba to?
Palagay ko mali ang report.
Oh.
Kasi, ang sabi dyan, it will take hours. In fact, it will take only minutes.
Paano mangyayari yan?
Kasi yung mga missiles ng China, for instance, the DF-17, yung mga warheads yan are carried by hypersonic glide vehicles.
Anong ibig sabihin ng hypersonic? Gaano kabilis ba yan?
It travels from 10 to 20 Mach. Ibig sabihin, kung 20 Mach, 20 times the speed of sound. Eh yung Guam, halimbawa, tirahin ng DF-17, wala pang 10 minutes.
Nandun na yung missile.
Nandun na.
Matamaan
At saka pag tumira sila, it's barrage. Lahat yung mga target, halimbawa yung mga air bases ng Amerika na nakapaligid sa China, na nasa Japan, Korea, sa Australia,
Sa Pilipinas.
o even in the Philippines, baka mamaya maglagay sila ng missile dito. Titirahin yan ng US, ng China. And their missiles will reach their targets in less than 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Tapos na yun.
Paano nagawa ng China yan na parang nabigla na lang ang Amerika na kaya na pala ng China gawin yan?
Mahabang istorya. Pero
Kaunti, kahit kaunti.
Isa-summarize ko na lang. Noong 1996, nung magkakaroon ng election sa Taiwan, nag-demonstrate ang China, nagpapatok ng missile
Sa Taiwan.
malapit sa Taiwan.
Malapit sa Taiwan.
Ang ginawa ng US, nagpadala sila ng 2 aircraft carrier. Atras ang China, napahiya ang China doon. In 2004, nagpadala ang US ng 7 aircraft carrier battle groups malapit sa Taiwan. The biggest naval armada ever assembled in history. Napahiya na naman ang China doon. So, ganyan pala ang gagawin nyo, ha? ang ginawa ng China, nag-develop sila ng anti-ship ballistic missile na sila lang ang nakadevelop ngayon na kayang palubugin ang mga barko de guerra ng Amerika.
Lalo na aircraft carriers.
Lalo na aircraft carriers, anywhere in the South China Sea. Even up to Guam, kahit lampas pa sa Guam, kaya nilang palubugin lahat yung mga barko de guerra dyan. Kaya kahit na dalhin ng Amerika, lahat yung 12 aircraft carrier battle groups or strike groups dyan sa South China Sea, kaya palubugin lahat yan ng mga anti-ship ballistic missile ng China. At kung kaya nilang tirahin yung mga moving targets, kaya nilang tirahin yung mga fixed targets na monitor ng mga satellites.
Okay.
So within minutes, hindi aabutin ng hours. It will take minutes, tapos na yung gera.
Yan ba ang dahilan kung bakit hanggang ngayon wala pa talagang atake ang Estados Unidos dyan sa China?
Nung lumabas yung PCA ruling ng The Hague, nagpadala dito, remember, nagpadala sa Pilipinas, sa South China Sea, ng 2 aircraft carrier strike groups ang US. May kasama mga nuclear submarines yan, saka mga nuclear bombers. Sinabihan sila ng China na if you touch any of the islands, we are willing to go to war. Kung gusto niyo nuclear. And for the first time in history, umatras ang Amerika. For the first time, umatras ang Amerika. Because China is willing to go to war for those islands. Ngayon, yung sinasabi ni Ambassador De Rosario na ipipilit natin na agawin yung mga islands sa South China Sea because of PCA. China is ready to go to war for that. Hindi natin alam, siguro medyo mahabang storya to kung bakit China is ready to go to war with anyone because of the South China Sea.
So one forum should have a special with General Victor Corpus on that matter.
Medyo mahabang paliwan na ganyan, pero China will really go to war.
Abangan po ninyo, mga kasama. 1 hour special
South
with
China
General
Sea.
Corpus 1 hour special with Ambassador Encomienda on the two different topics. Now let us move on to trade. Kasi ito po nakasalalay ang kaginhawaan ng buhay ng mga darating na salinlahi natin, darating na henerasyon ng Pilipino kung gumanda ang ating trade and economy. And of course, today may build. Pero mukhang yung trade war issue ay isang napaka-sentrong problema ng mundo at ng bayang Pilipinas, no? Ano ba talaga itong trade war? I will show you a report from Mabubani. Mebubani, actually ang pronunciation ng iba. Kishore Mebubani. He was Singapore's ambassador to the UN, and he is a very well-respected international intellectual. Ano ba talaga yung trade war? Sabi niya, the United States is using the trade war to stop China from overtaking it. So hindi lang po unfair trade daw and so on. No. Ang intention daw sa ayon kay Kishore Mebubani, ang USA gustong tigilan ang pag-asenso ng China at lampasan ang Estados Unidos. Sabi ng ex-Singapore diplomat Kishore Mebubani. Kishore Mebubani says the US could have solved its trade dispute with China if it wanted to, but it is now a geopolitical contest. So pwedeng ayusin ni Trump yan, pero actually walang intention daw na ayusin yan, kundi gamitin para pigilan ang China. Now, second point niya, China's Belt and Road Initiative was a preemptive strike against the US and current world order. Inunahan ng China ang Estados Unidos by this Belt and Road para meron siyang trade and export-import access to all these countries on the Belt Road. What's your reaction to this? Is it really just to stop China and there is no intention to solve the trade issue?
Alam ni Trump na hindi to tunay na trade issue at deficit of the US dahil ang US deficit sa pag tinanggal lang niya yung defense budget niya at huwag niyang palakihin, ay masosolve na yung trade deficit niya dahil it's over $800 billion. Ang deficit niya with the world is 500-something billion. With China is about 400-something billion dollars. No? Pagka itong trade ay tunay na problema, hindi ito tunay na problema dahil yung statistics na ginagamit niya ay hindi ito holistic statistic dahil trade in goods lang yan. Pag isama natin ang trade in services at yung mga binebenta ng American companies in China that are manufactured in China, that's already an additional $250 billion and services of about $30-40 billion is equivalent to another over $200 billion. So actually, hindi talagang negative for the US. The problem of the US is its productive economy is no longer there. And it can live with that as long as it has technological superiority. Pero ngayon, with coming 5G at robotics na ininvestan ng China, China is now ahead of the US. Kaya tinitira nila yung Huawei at these other things. It can live with trade goods deficit. It has a problem with technological deficit. Because with that technological deficit, that means that sooner or later, magiging mas malakas yun isang country. Economically, the Philippines is not a real target because the entire Philippine economy is less than 2.8% of China's economy, which is less than 1 year's growth, less than half of 1 year's growth, the entire economy. So it is not an economic matter for the Philippines. It's really a geopolitical struggle.
On the trade issue again, on our economy, Bernie Villegas has this to say. Philippines growth aligned with the rise of Asian century. Sabi ni Bernie Villegas, economist. Sabi ni Bernie Villegas, Bernardo Villegas, economist at UAP, said the country is now lessening its dependence on Western countries, including the US, which are seeing slower economic growth, and is strengthening its ties with countries that are at the epicenter of growth in Asia. Citing Hong Kong Shanghai Bank's The Wider World in 2050 study, Villegas noted the Philippines is expected to be the 16th largest economy in the world by 2050. So everybody can join in this part of the. Is the future good for the Philippines with Asia and China? We'll start with George, and then Vic, and then Ambassador Encomienda.
What we can see now is in the last 3 years is that the tremendous improvement in our economic situation. In fact, employment is so high, it's unprecedented. No? Everyone who wants a job has a job. But going towards the future, the Philippines has to position, because it's no longer going to be trade in goods and employment. We have to manage our talent, because the talent of the people will be the most important when robotics comes. It's not the labor. There's artificial intelligence, there's digital economy.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. General Vic, hindi ba tayo mapipigilan ng kaguluhan? Paano tayo makakaiwas?
Palagay ko, imbis na makipag-away tayo sa China, we can devise a win-win approach in solving our problem with yung maritime dispute natin sa kanila. For instance, ang main project ngayon ng China is the Belt and Road Initiative, which covers Asia, Europe,
Yeah.
and Africa.
Okay.
It can be extended na tayo ang magiging epicenter if the Belt and Road will be extended by reviving the ancient
Galleon trade. Okay.
route.
I have to save 30 seconds for the Ambassador. Is our diplomatic initiative going to continue in this direction? Are you fearful of any abortion of this productive direction?
Well, my problem, the way I look at it, is we're not going anywhere. Number one, we have not defined clearly our national interests, that we have to put the Philippines first. Number two, our own perception of our issues in the region, especially China. We mentioned archipelagic sea lanes passage, we mentioned fisheries. We are not even organized in that aspect. So I would say that the way forward, organize ourselves here internally first, and we have to negotiate with China. But we cannot avoid China.
Okay, so sana nakikinig po ang ating mga kaibigan sa DFA at sa NEDA dito sa narinig po ninyo kay Ambassador Encomienda. We have no more time. So look forward to our specials para talagang in-depth po maintindihan nyo yung mga issues sa military, sa diplomacy, sa trade. And so we have to say goodbye and thank you to our guests here. We will hope to have you again on our discussion on One Media Forum. Mabuhay po kayo lahat. And have a good week ahead of you.